Hey everybody, it's Friday. So you know what that means. It's Friday. Yeah. It's Saturday, Sunday. What? For those that are new to the live edition of the Roundtable, this is Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm Ron Johnson, your host. I got Luke Inman, or Spinman as he likes to go by on X. We got Reggie Wilson, and we got Julia Daniels from Care 11. And as you see, Julia has like that dark background, kind of reminds you of like Batman when he comes out the shadows. She's going to come out the shadows today and give us some of her bold predictions about the NFL draft. She's also going to talk about Caitlin Clark enters the WNBA and possibly has a Nike deal. Reggie Wilson, he's got a lot to talk about. We know he's an avid LeBron James fan. There's a recent video. We'll talk about that. LeBron called himself the GOAT. We'll talk about that conversation as well as other things. But there's so much in sports we could talk about. The transfer portal. The Gophers got a big man in basketball now. And he also plays like the cello and the violin. So maybe he's a sensitive guy. But I want everybody to know, before we jump into this show, it's brought to you by Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go is one of those things that I love. I love the classic Monopoly. This is a little bit different. It's a different spin on Monopoly. And I have to admit it, I love to win. Like seriously, I will stay up to 2 a.m. playing Monopoly on a video game online. And now it gives you another spin. You can take money from your friends. You can end their whole like dynasty. You can steal money, kind of like the Vikings hopefully do on draft night. But here's the thing. It's a different classic quiz. You can join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now on the app market for free on Google Play or the App Store. Again, tell your friends to join, and then you and your friends can make this a dynasty. Speaking of dynasties, I feel like the Vikings might get one if they draft the right guy. But we got to get locked in on these topics today. What you got for us, Luke?
Yeah, Ron, the countdown is on. 6 days until the NFL draft. So today I want some bold predictions for round 1 next Thursday night.
Timberwolves getting it started this weekend. Now, let's examine this. If they do not win this series, is this season a failure?
Like Ron said, we're talking about the WNBA. Can it launch its most popular season yet with the stars that we drafted this year? We'll talk about it.
And the Minnesota Twins, much like a wet noodle, can't hit a baseball with a wet noodle, and they can't hit a baseball with a bat. 195. We'll talk about what those numbers mean and much more coming up next on the Roundtable. It's Friday, people. Enjoy it. It is cold outside if you're in Minnesota. So if you're in Florida, if you're in Iowa, if you're in Texas, anywhere else but Minnesota, you're probably a lot warmer than we are right now. But with no further ado, it's time to jump into the show. Take it away, Reggie.
All right, so the Timberwolves get it started this weekend against the Phoenix Suns. And look, they were 0-3 against the Suns this season. A lot of people are down on the Wolves just because of how the season ended, how it finished. And I think, rightfully so. But it's interesting. And I made this comparison Wednesday on the basketball party. But this kind of feels like that Vikings season back in 2022 when they won 13 games, kind of one of the best teams in the league, had a negative point differential, and then they go into that playoff game against the Giants and that defense gets exposed and the team itself just gets exposed and they're bounced out of the first round. And it was just like, what just happened? Like, it's over? Wait a minute. What? After all that? And Julia did a story earlier this week on the Wolves. This was their second best season in franchise history as far as win total. And I just think that this was a tough draw in the first round. A very tough draw. Like, as much as I love my Lakers, I would have loved if they would have gotten the Lakers. I would have loved if they would have gotten the Kings without Herter and Malik Monk. I would have loved if somehow they would have gotten the Warriors, but the Warriors are down bad out of the playoffs for the first time in a very, very long time. But they got the Suns. They got KD. They got Booker. They got Beal. And they got Grayson Allen. Oh, my goodness. The big jerk himself. 4-year, $70 million man, Grayson Allen. And look, I talked about this on Care this week. Anthony Edwards in 3 games against the Suns this season. 13 points, 17 points, 13 points. Grant Hill found him, named him the Team USA basketball, got some momentum going for that. Usually when you get picked for a position like that, that means that you are one of the best doing it. He has to show that in this series. It's time for Ant to show up. I need 25 to 30 plus a game. It's time for him to take over and really kind of put the league on notice like, hey, I'm here. I saw in some interviews yesterday on ESPN, he said he's like at a 40%. He's like, man, you have to remember, I mean, I'm still only 22 years old. He told Taylor Rooks yesterday, I'm probably at like a 5 at where he's at as far as like his ascension in the league. So I need him to take it to an 8 or a 9 during this playoff series. Kind of had a coming out party last year. Needs to do it again because paying off the tees, I feel, and we've seen it, Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert have experienced this. They had some great teams on those Utah Jazz teams. Some great seasons, only to get bounced in the first round. Mike Conley said he feels the urgency. Yesterday, Rudy said he feels the urgency too because he hears the noise about people talking. So it's time for them to make it out of the first round. And a lot of different people have a lot of different motivations to do that. Haven't seen it done with the Wolves in 20 years. I feel with how this season ended, going from 1 seed to 3 seed to end the season, drawing the Phoenix Suns, bad loss to end the season. With as much promise as this season had, I feel like it would be a failure if they lost in the first round.
Yeah, a lot of good points there, Reg. It's so funny you brought up the 2022 Vikings. That's the same thing I got written down. 2022 Vikings all over. It just eerily similar vibes for me too. Both were huge overachievers all season long, as you mentioned. Vikings had the largest comeback in NFL history, remember, versus the Colts. What did the Wolves do this year? Oh, they erased a 22-point deficit versus the Clippers. They won by 22, the largest swing in NBA history. They broke multiple franchise records, as you pointed out. Gobert's probably going to win an award. Naz Reid's probably going to win an award. They gave us some Sports Center top 10 theatrics, too, like the Ant block versus the Pacers to win it. So just very similar to the Vikings that year, as you pointed out. And I know it's not technically, apples to apples here, but this really feels like we're kind of watching the same spin-off of the same movie or TV show to me. Big overachievers. We had a lot of fun, but if they go one and done come playoff time, yeah, it's going to be a sour ending to what I think is a really epic, legendary regular season for them. But at the same time here, only one team can win it all, right? So unless you're the guy who says all 29 other teams that didn't win the championship had a failure of a season, okay, that's fine. I get that argument too. You're right to some degree, but I still think if they go one and done in round 1 versus the Phoenix Suns, as much as that's going to sting for a while, I think once the dust settles and we're able to look back at this with a clearer head here 3-4 years down the road, I think a lot of people are still going to say it was one of the best seasons in franchise history. And to me, that's got to be worth something, right? So not a failure of a season. To me, too many achievements, too many special moments happen that you just can't gloss over to be considered a failure in my book.
Luke, that was such a Minnesota answer. God bless you, man.
Thank
God
you,
bless
sir. Yeah.
I would disagree with you, Luke, because I always jump back to media day this year. It's our first time hearing from the Wolves before the season starts, and their one objective of the season is to make it out of the first round of the playoff. And they had that goal in mind all season long. And then they get to this point in the year and they're not playing their best basketball and they draw the Phoenix Suns for their first round matchup. I think it is a failure if they don't make it out of the first round because that was the main goal the entire time they were playing this entire season. I think, yeah, you see the success that they had. You see the crowds that they drew for their games and things like that. And that's all fine and everything. But when you specifically say that before your season even starts and then you can't get it done despite the success that you saw in the regular season, I would say it's a failure of a season. I think what Finchie always says is that opponents are puzzles. And he said the Suns are a puzzle that they've yet to figure out yet. I do agree that there's urgency on this team, but I think they've just played so sloppy against Phoenix this year, and especially what we saw this week. it's going to be a toss-up, and I think this is going to be a rough series for them. I would love, of course, when you're covering a team, you want to see them succeed because it makes your job easier, right? But there's got to be a lot of changes that happen before they go into this matchup. And I think also, Cat's finally, this is another change too. Cat's finally getting to practice with the guys. He's played 2 games so far, but he actually hadn't done anything 5-on-5 since his surgery until he got into that first game. So he's had five days to get prepped for this one. So that could be a difference maker for them this week. But it's going to be tough. And I would like to say my confidence is there, but it's really not. We'll see how this goes. But I would say if they can't make it out of this first round, I hate to say it, but they set the objective for themselves. So I would say it's a failure.
Yeah, I agree with you, Julia. I would say it's a failure. Like, to be the number 1 seed for as long as they were, to be sitting at the top of the board for as long as they were, to change the hearts and minds of Minnesota fans and getting behind the Timberwolves, and everybody's going to buy jerseys. And, they did so well. They did so well that Glenn Taylor wanted them back. Imagine breaking up with your boo and having $1.5 million to walk away from your boo that you hate and you have not had success with. And then all of a sudden she does something, or he does something, like he goes and gets you flowers or something, or she goes and, takes you on the trip you've been waiting on, or just says those 3 magic words that you've been waiting to hear. I hate Iowa. And you're like, oh my gosh, I want you back. Like, that's what the Timberwolves have done for Glenn Taylor. They have made him so happy that he's like, screw this. I want you guys back. I'm still going to sell you eventually, but for $3 billion. Like, they doubled their valuation this season. They were a $1.5 billion team. They are a $3 billion possibility now with the success. So if they don't win, it's a failure. You can't be the number 1 fighting for number 1, and then you just get pushed to number 3 because 2 other teams are really good as well, and then you lose to the 6th seed. Granted, the 6th seed does have Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. I mean, they are literally on America's team right now. They're going to the Olympics. Like, they are the Captain Americas of the NBA. And you let them come into your building, and you let Grayson Allen punk you. You let Bradley Beal tell you where he's from. Like, it just doesn't work like that. And so that's why this is going to be a tough. And to add insult to injury, during the season, we know when Anthony Edwards was about to have a baby, he had a terrible start to his game. Mentally, he probably was like, I couldn't imagine like going out there for tip off and my wife is about to go into labor. Like, and I know she's going to go into labor, and at any moment I'm gonna get like a grab from a coach who has a phone, who's keeping track of like, okay, she started a contraction, she's headed to the hospital. Like, you mentally aren't in it. So Rudy Gobert is in that situation right now. He's mentally with his girlfriend that she's about to have a baby. And I personally would say, induce that thing, girl, right now, today. Go to the hospital, get that induction, get it induced. Let's have that baby today so Rudy can show up tomorrow to the stadium and have a clear head, clear heart, clear mind, just like they say on Varsity Blues. But I throw this question to each of you really quick before we jump over to the next segment, and we got a word from our sponsor, because we got to talk about the NFL draft. That's coming up next week as well. I'm super excited. It's going to be a busy week, but we got to talk about this. Scottie Scheffler could have left the Masters. He didn't. Thank goodness his wife didn't have the baby. Rudy Gobert is in this situation. We're not going to talk about golf. It's a different sport. Basketball. I got 2 questions for you. Actually, the first one first. I want to get you guys a quick reaction to this. If you're Rudy Gobert, Luke Inman, go to you first. Girlfriend's about to have a baby. Do you miss game 1 or 2, or do you stay and then show up to the hospital later?
Man, come on. It sounds like, first of all, it wouldn't happen until the conference finals or NBA finals. So based on the conversation we just had, that's already a huge win in a lot of people's books. But how do you argue with the guy who supported Ant? He left at halftime. Mike Conley left the bubble in 2020 to do the same thing. I don't think you can. Yeah, I think you got to let him go do what he's got to do.
But what would you do? Not let him do. Be decisive. What would you do?
Oh, Ron, that conversation's already taken place 9 months prior. I'm going to game 1. I'll see you there. Yeah.
Okay.
There, Ron. Yeah.
And for ladies, if you would like to leave a comment in the chat, his name is Luke Spinman. Reggie, Alexis is going into labor. Game 1, you're playing for the Lakers. You're playing shooting guard next to LeBron. You got D'Lo at the 1. Are you letting LeBron down? Or are you going to stay for the game?
Come on, Reg. We need you.
Unlike Luke,
What?
F them kids spinning.
What?
I gotta go be with my baby and my baby, man. Like that. That's it. Like, look, if I'm Rudy, it's like, look, man, Nas Reed is good. Just have him come in. He can rim protect.
Okay.
Like, I gotta go see about these kids. I gotta go see the baby being born. Like, you can't have those times back.
Yeah,
you just
true.
can't.
Julia, I got a different angle for you.
I would hope.
Huh?
I would hope I would be number one in their book.
Okay, see, that's the angle I was going to go.
I would hope that they would be there supporting me because I feel like I would be a little bit more important than the team. At least I would hope in that situation.
So if you're about to have a baby and Anthony Edwards goes to the playoff game, I'm just saying, would you be mad, or how mad would you be? Would it be like grounds for like divorce, or just like we're not going to talk for a couple of days? Like how would you handle that if Anthony Edwards didn't show up and you were having this first child?
We're not not putting those two things together.
Rudy Gobert, then you're Rudy Gobert's girlfriend.
And me in that kind of conversation.
I'm just saying, what would you how mad would you be really mad? Would you be so mad? Like with the baby, when the baby comes, does all the madness go away?
If I was having a child with somebody and they were not there for me while I was having a child, I would be upset. If they had the option to be there for me and they did not choose me, I would be upset.
But
Even though it's game one and this franchise has never been to an NBA Finals.
There'll be other games, man.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is the second question. This is the second question I have. I want to go back around then. One more quick question before we get to our sponsor. Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
Oh, come on.
Game 7 of the NBA Finals. You've made it to the end. It's the Timberwolves versus the Celtics in Game 7. What do you do, Luke? We already know you're going to the game. Yeah, you're going to game. Reggie.
Hey, they'll be there.
Reggie, Lakers versus Celtics or something. Or Lakers versus Lakers versus Celtics.
Family out.
Let's say the Lakers make it all the way to play the Celtics this year. You're playing with LeBron. Game 7 to get your ring, your first ring. You just got traded to the Lakers. This is going to be your first ring. First ring or first baby? You going to game 7, or you jumping in the jet and you taking off to the hospital?
Baby, can you hold it? Can you just No, it's okay. So I would go in and I would play the game, honestly.
Okay.
Like I'd lock in, play the game. But then as soon as somebody comes and says, hey, it's happening, brother, I'm out. Like hey, look, send me the ring. I hope y'all win. Like, I'm out. I remember the Rams a few years ago, Van Jefferson, he won the Super Bowl with the Rams. And they were like, hey, she's in labor right now. He's like, okay, I'm gone. Like, he didn't even celebrate with the team. Like, he was out of there. And, it worked out timing-wise that she didn't have it until he was able to get there. But if it was going to happen in that same timeline, like, I'm going to play, but as soon as they give me the bat signal, I'm out of there.
You're out. Julia, how would you feel about that? Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
I would be planning, if I was the one having the baby, I would be planning to be in whatever city that game is being played at the hospital there so that we can keep all of our options open.
Nice.
Okay. I've never understood, like, as much money as these guys have and people have, just get a suite, get a doctor and a midwife to come to the game. And have a baby at the stadium.
Have the baby at the game, baby.
Nickname would be Target Center. Like, because this baby was a bullseye. And then the coach could just use a timeout. When the baby's about to come out, he can run up, see the baby being born on the timeout, like put on the smock and everything. And then hang out with the baby for 5 minutes, get some skin touch. Boom. Go back out there for the second half. Baby can have spend its first minutes at the NBA Finals Game 7. Like, get a suite. Like, people have had babies in cars. Like, I don't know if you guys remember the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode with Vanessa Williams and Will Smith when Vanessa Williams was pregnant, fake pregnant for the show. And she went to the game and she took Will Smith to the game. And then she went into labor in the limo because the Lakers, like, the game got out. And this was back when, like, she was actually dating Rick Fox or married to Rick Fox. But, they didn't really say she was at the Lakers game for Rick Fox. They made her like a different personality. But she had the baby in the parking lot in the limo. And, and then she named the baby like Magic Kareem something, like she named it after the Laker players when she had the baby. But like you could have a baby at a stadium. Like if you go into labor, I mean, they have a training room there. They have doctors there. I'm pretty sure at the NBA Finals Game 7, there's at least 200 guys in that building that are doctors. There's probably a couple estheticians courtside, because they're courtside. A couple, what is it called? Anesthesiologists courtside.
Wait, what does estheticians have to do with?
I don't know. Esthetician does the eyebrows, right?
Gotta make sure she looks good for the baby.
She gotta look good for the baby because she's gonna be on Sports Center with this baby.
A lot of press, a lot of media around.
You got a manicurist. You got to have a shaman. You got like
Target Center. You got Mayo Clinic right across the street. So
exactly.
Really
see,
come on now.
So Game 7,
it's almost
NBA playoffs will be at the Target Center. Just have a doctor and get her over across the street to have the baby. Have a room ready. Have like the cops block off the entire street, like no traffic on the street. She's gonna have to get pushed across on a gurney or in a wheelchair. Like, oh yeah, come on now.
We can sheriff's deputies to escort the player across.
You can make this work.
Highway when they're running.
Well, we know what everybody's gonna do. I personally, I'm a father. I think I would probably lean towards my kid just because, like, I remember what happened with my second kid, and so that is a tough time. But I would try to plan it down to that minute. I would induce though. If I had to choose, I'm saying, look, let's induce this. Let's get this, like, especially if you carried to term and you're over 36, 37 weeks. Hey, let's just get her out. Let's get her out, and then let's enjoy this day, and then I'll go play tomorrow. I would induce today if I could. But that's a different story. We'll see. Who knows what they're going to do. But we got to talk about the NFL draft. The NFL draft is now heating up. It's in the 9th hour. Everybody's talking about every quarterback the Vikings could possibly take. Everybody's trying to get intel. Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell are now tight-lipped. The vault has been locked. The picks that they want are in. And we're going to talk about that coming up next. We have some bold predictions for you guys. And if you guys have bold predictions, throw them into the chat now. Let us know what you think. What is your NFL draft bold prediction? And maybe Luke could talk about some of them. And maybe we'll interact and talk about your bold prediction and say if it's crazy or it might actually be cooking. But we'll do that after a word from our sponsors.
Thanks, Ron. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by Ron Johnson's favorite game in the world. It's Monopoly Go, and it's everything you love and remember from the classic board game, but with a new and exciting twist. From bank heists to stealing your friend's money, Monopoly Go is the newest smash hit mobile game that's been downloaded now over 150 million times. A fun new twist on Monopoly where you can play on not just one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards all at once as you build amazing cities that bring you big money and big rewards. The Monopoly you love, but now you can play on your phone anytime, anywhere. And there's so much to do. Mess with your friends and charge them rent on all the iconic properties like Boardwalk, Ventura Avenue, plus the Monopoly leaderboard shows you who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is amongst your friends. So what are you waiting for? Get in the game and join the millions of friends and people already playing Monopoly Go. Just download the Monopoly Go app for free on the App Store or on Google Play.
Well, now it's time for the thing that Luke Inman loves the most. That's the only reason why he's here today, people. Like, he wants to talk about the draft some more. So, Luke, take it away. NFL draft. What you got?
Yeah, you see all these pictures right behind me? One of them's Mel Kiper, the godfather of the draft. That's how much I love the draft, you guys. Here's my bold prediction, and I've been studying this thing for the last 3-4 months. So I'm going to actually veer outside the Vikings. It's gonna tie back into the Vikings, but here's my bold prediction. The New York Giants and the Las Vegas Raiders, they are not only not interested, they will not select a quarterback in round 1 of the draft. Those are both teams that a lot of people right now are projecting, they're mocking a quarterback to, but there's always a lot of smoke this time of year. And when you look at both those teams and the situations they're in, I'd be shocked if the Giants took a quarterback in the top 10 when they still owe Daniel Jones $80 million. $80 million they owe that guy, especially when he's had zero weapons to throw to since he's been in New York. So I think the Giants go wide receiver. They roll with Daniel Jones at least one more year, and all the quarterback talk, it's all smoke right now. And same with Las Vegas. If the Raiders made an aggressive move in Antonio Pierce's first year, they mortgaged the future and all that ammo to get up into the top 4 or 5 picks, or even just stuck and picked a guy like Michael Penix or Bo Nix for that matter at pick 13, I would be pretty shocked because everybody knows they're more than a quarterback away right now. So Giants and Raiders, guys, I'm not worried about them moving up or leapfrogging the Vikings right now, the only team you really got to worry about, if you're Kwesi, is Denver, because they have to take one of these quarterbacks. And the good news is Denver, they don't even have a second-round pick, let alone 2 first-round picks like Kwesi does. So Giants, Raiders, no quarterback, not worried about it. That's my bold prediction. What do you guys got?
Julia.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think
she agrees now.
Oh, wow, this is rare.
I was just looking at the mock draft that CBS, they switch things around constantly, and they're switching things around and whatnot. And everyone thinks Marvin Harrison Jr. will be the first wide receiver to go. But I think it's interesting they have Malik Neighbors as the first wide receiver to go off the board. And I can see that being a pretty solid, bold prediction. And then Marvin Harrison going to the Giants instead. But yeah, I would agree. I don't think the Raiders, they have Michael Penix going to the Raiders at 13, but I don't think that's going to happen. I worry Michael Penix is going to fall.
Yeah,
I think that would be my boldest prediction. I think a lot of people have put a lot of stock into his national championship performance, and I think they're very worried about the injuries that he's had too, and all the physicals he's had to go through, and this, that, and the other. So my bold prediction would be Michael Penix. Unfortunately, sorry, Reggie, he's your draft crush. Not going quite as high as people would expect him to. So,
yeah, the medicals are huge for Michael Penix, and that's just something we just don't know what those look like behind the scenes. You're right.
Dang.
Dang, take a beat, man. You all right?
Dang.
Take a second.
Okay? I remember a guy being injury prone in college, getting drafted by the Vikings, and it worked out really well. His name was Adrian Peterson. I remember that. But, all right, okay, I'll snap out of it. So I guess my bold prediction is not very bold at all. It's interesting. Yesterday, the Elliot Wolf from the Patriots was like, "Yeah, we open for business, baby. Number 3, you want it? Come get it." And I don't know. I think that's a little just gamesmanship. I don't know. I think they would be silly to move from that spot unless somebody just gives them the farm. But I think they would be silly to move from that spot when they are clearly in need of a quarterback. Traded away Mac and Cheese to the Jags, so they need a quarterback. So unless they believe, just like you guys believe, that Penix will fall, Knicks might fall, I don't know. But I think my bold prediction is that the Vikings are not going to trade up at all. I think Kwesi is going to be very calculated, and he's just gonna stand pat where he is, and he's gonna take Michael Penix at 11.
I'll be honest, Reggie, out of all the possibilities, that's one of my favorites. Just sticking and picking, getting 2 really good players, including a guy like Michael Penix. That'd be awesome.
Well, so my bold prediction, I don't know if it's really bold, but mine is more of an elephant in the room that we're not talking about much. There's a chance the Vikings might just stick at 11 or trade back, knowing maybe the quarterback they want or could get, which is Bo Nix. Not say they want Bo Nix, or they're they could be okay with Bo Nix. And then they might realize they could still get Bo Nix later in the draft, and maybe they get more draft capital with a number 11 pick or a number 23 pick to another team who maybe has 2 second-round picks, maybe has a second and a third and a fourth. What the 3rd-round pick is worth is kind of up to the buyer. And when you look at the NFL draft tracker, and who has the additional picks, that's where the Vikings are going to sit. So my bold prediction is looking at how can they maybe get more draft capital? And is it a guarantee they're going to get one of these top 4 quarterbacks? So I know people wouldn't be happy if that happened. If they were to drop out of 11 because the quarterbacks they want are already taken in the first 3. And then their plan is hey, if 1, 2, and 3 are taking quarterbacks that we wanted and we can't get that 3 from the Patriots, why stick at 11 when we can go back to 23 and get Bo Nix steal, or go back to whatever and then trade that 11 and get maybe a 2nd-round pick back plus a 3rd-round pick, because we know there's a lot of value in 2 and 3 as well. Again, fans won't be happy, but I think that's the elephant in the room that we don't talk about much. Coming up next, we got to talk a little bit more about sports in Minnesota. I made a reference to a wet noodle. We're going to talk about that. We got to talk about the Twins, and we'll do that after word from our sponsors.
Thanks, Juan. Excuse me. Thanks, Ron. Quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the MLB. Right now, guys, it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, not to mention baseball's in full swing, and that means FanDuel is your #1 place to be to bet on all the action. Check this out. Right now, new customers, you're getting $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose, on any $5 bet. And FanDuel's got it all. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on the #1 app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win with $150 in bonus bets. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the MLB.
Well, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's too early in the season. I say it's with baseball all the time. People spend way too much time being too dialed into baseball when there's 162 games. But I've seen a lot of negative tweets out there. I'm not going to say the names, but there are people within the state of Minnesota who work on different networks. One person said the Twins are destined to win 65 games. I am not a betting man, but I feel like that could be kind of close. And that's what's sad about this. I am a big softball guy. My daughter plays high school softball in the 7th grade. My youngest daughter is now in the 3rd grade playing softball. And so I spent a lot of time. I played baseball growing up. I played in high school. So I spent a lot of time on the diamond. And the one thing I know is no matter how bad your pitching can be, if your fielders are just stopping the ball and stopping the bleeding and allow not like a nosebleed, put a piece of tissue up there. Like you have to have that type of infield or outfield. Big hit, get it off the wall. But then when it's your turn to bat, you could put a lot of pressure on a good team by just putting the ball in play, by just making the extra play. And the Twins, they suck. I hate to use that word, but a 1.59%, the lowest average right now. Is this a player problem or is this a coaching problem? That's the question I have for the group. For me, it's a player problem for me. Hitting the ball is a player problem. Like the lowest average as far as winning percentage, it's a player problem. Like if you're winning, like I get it. People can say it's coaching, but a sport like baseball, it's a player. Like I'm not going to hate on baseball managers, but honestly, once you put the team together, if your GM and your coaches put the team together and the season started, the only thing baseball coaches really need to do, because the pitchers are called by the catcher, the coaches can help. The coach does have to pull a guy when he's not pitching well. A coach does have to set the right batting lineup. But at the end of the day, everybody needs to hit the ball. Everybody needs to make the play, cut the errors out. It's a player thing, in my opinion, but I'll leave it up to you guys. Julia, what do you think?
I would agree. Not a GM problem. The GM problem is he should have spent more money on pitching.
Good one.
I would say, yeah, this is a player problem. These guys have been playing baseball their entire life, right? I think it has something to do with, and this is what I've been saying since we saw this become an issue since the season started. Granted, it's so early that it's hard to really make assumptions about things. I think they've just got a lot of really young guys in this lineup that have never started the season in the bigs. And they've usually had a warming up period in minor league baseball before they get called up to be in a lineup like this. And I think they're struggling right now, not like how they did last year, where you could bring up guys like Matt Wallner and Eddie Julian, and they hit well because they've already had a month with the Saints to kind of adjust to the season. Yeah, I think it's a player problem. I think it's something that they'll probably fix. That's how baseball works. It's going to be ebbs and flows the entire season. Granted, it is the lowest average in the MLB right now, but it's so early. I would agree, though. Player problem, not a coaching problem, not a GM problem. This is something that it's a mental game. They got to get out of their own minds.
Because here's where I go with this. Eddie Julian has had 57 at-bats. 57 at-bats. He has 10 hits. That's bad.
Yeah, and that's unusual.
57?
Yeah.
What'd you say? That's a what?
It's unusual for him. So he's a Canadian guy. He spent most of his time in batting cages. He's known for being good at the plate.
Right.
He's usually walked more than anything else, and he's just not made great decisions this year.
Correct. 24 strikeouts, 7 walks. 24 strikeouts. Let me say that again. Between him, Will Castro, and Byron Buxton, they lead the team in strikeouts. That's not good. Byron Buxton, 193. Eddie Julian, 175. Will Castro, 122. And that's bad. Now, Carlos Correa, 306. He's doing his thing. Like he's making the plays that are necessary to happen. He's only had 36 at-bats and 11 hits. So that's kind of like my point there. That's why I say it's the players. This is a player problem. When your hitting is this bad, like there's only so much a coach can do. After that, it's here, and it's can you trust that you're going to put the ball in the zone and you're going to trust to see the pitch. Like either they're not seeing the pitches or they're not taking this serious. I know it's cold, but I don't know. Luke, what do you think? Player problem, coach problem, or is it the city of Minnesota or Minneapolis?
Well, we already know that's a big problem right there. But you're right, man. Half their best talent's on the sidelines. Your two best players, Royce Lewis, Carlos Correa, they're both shelved. Not to mention you got guys like Max Kepler as well. But the other big issue I have, and Julia mentioned it, the guys who are being forced to step up in their plate, they're all just so young, man. Julian, Kirilloff, who's actually been really good. Miranda, though, guys like that, Wallner. We talked about this all offseason, how there was almost going to be this unfair amount of pressure on some of these young guys who they just don't have the experience right now. And that was before all those big name injuries too. So for me, one of the most disappointing guys this far has been Byron Buxton. He's one of the only veterans still standing that's been here. He's the guy you kind of expected to lead this team, rally them back to at least being competitive game in and game out. And right now, guys, he just kind of looks like a shell of his peak prime Byron Buxton self right now. And I don't know if that's just what it looks like now when he plays center field every day like he has been or what, but you got to get more than what you've got from him so far because it's just not enough. So, it's on the players at the end of the day. Injuries are a big part of the game, as we know, but they've already taken such a huge toll on this team, and we're not even a month into the season.
Reggie.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. I think just some weird things, man. Like Carlos Correa checks a swing and he hurts his oblique. And you're like, get out of here. Royce Lewis just rounding the base and he hurts himself. Like Anthony DeSclafani, before the season even starts, he's out. And Louis Varland is thrust into that role and he's been getting rocked. Like, I think it's all just not been working for them to start the season. You would think that, okay, maybe if the pitching is good, the bats just need to catch up, or the bats are good, the pitching just needs to catch up. Like everything has been a problem. And so to answer Ron's question, it is a player problem. You had Chris Paddock saying that he felt like the team could win 100 games this year. And you're like, okay, probably need to start getting going on that. And it's tough because it's like on days where maybe Pablo has a good day. He had a good day the other day, but he couldn't get any run support. Or, the last two starts of his, he had some shaky starts. Or, you get games where, okay, the starting pitching is good. And then you see the bullpen, which is supposed to be like the stars of the team. Griffin Jax gives up the walk-off home runs to Cedric Mullins, and it's just like, goodness gracious, like they can't catch a break with any of this. Matt Wallner gets sit down to AAA because he's not hitting well. He's striking out a lot. And so there's just not a lot going. And I think Rocco said this last week, but he was like, he thinks guys are just kind of pressing out there. But honestly, you kind of saw the blueprint kind of going to Ron's point. When they played Cleveland was like death by 1,000 paper cuts. They were just like, ooh, I'm going to put it in play over here, put it in play over here. Before you know it, two guys on base here, a guy on base here. Carlos Correa was like every time, first and third, first and third, first and third. And they're just bringing in runs, like not hitting any home runs, just bringing in runs. I think guys just need to focus on putting the ball in play and just trying to score runs that way, because whatever the strategy is right now up until this point, it hasn't been working, and you just hope to see that they get it together this weekend against the Tigers.
Well, it is my Detroit Tigers, and my Detroit Tigers are actually doing pretty well this season. I hope the Timberwolves can get it. The Twins can get it figured out. I do want to see them turn it around, because again, when in the Timberwolves too, yeah. But when sports are doing well in this town, it makes our job easier. It makes our job fun. It's able to cross-pollinate sports. Like I can get on the draft talk tonight, And now I got, or not tonight, sorry, next week. And I can get on TV and make jokes. I can get on the Vikings socials and make jokes. But then when they lose, then I have to say like, oh, don't end up like the Timberwolves. Don't end up like the Twins. Don't pick the wrong guy and end up like the Twins. Like, that's not fun. It's fun to say like this town is winning. And that's what everybody wants. When you look at the standings right now, my Tigers, they're in third place, 10-9. You got the Royals, you got the Guardians that are 13-6. The Guardians are 13-6 and the Twins are 6-11. I don't think anybody would have predicted that. I don't think anybody would have bet on that. But it is what it is. We know at FanDuel, you can make bets on anything. We got a couple minutes left before we get out of here. We've had a great time. We want to make sure you guys know you can get us 24/7 on YouTube. Those watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you tell a friend that we're here. And when you subscribe, you'll get all access to all of our shows 24/7. Anytime anything pops up, big news. When the draft pick happens, they're going to have Locked On Sports content quick to jump on and break down that draft pick. Whether it's JJ McCarthy, whether it's JJ Evans, whoever it is, we are going to talk about them. I hope it's not JJ Evans though, but it would be dynamite. Glad you like that, Reggie. Whoever they pick, it'll be dynamite. But we gotta talk about the WNBA because I'm a girl dad. So my daughter, my third grader, is a basketball player now. She's taller than everybody. She's 5 feet tall, wears a size 9 shoe, and she's only in the third grade. So she is like a Leah Boston out there on the court. She has the braids, and so she's just getting rebound. I mean, she had 22 rebounds and 24 points in the game. So she's just bigger and stronger than most of the girls right now. But it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch because she actually gets off the ground and get rebounds. And so I'm a big proponent of the WNBA growing. I'm a big proponent of softball growing, like women's softball just expanded. Jocelyn Alo, if you guys don't remember her, from Oklahoma, she is now signed with RO Sports in Chicago. She is now a pro softball player. So she is like the Caitlin Clark of softball. Last year, she was the home run demon that just crushed any pitch. They didn't even pitch to her. I think she had the most forced walks or whatever you call it, intentional walks in soft. It's like she had like a record for intentional walks where on the 4th pitch, she was already starting to take off her armband. Like she didn't even wait for the pitch. She knew they were going to walk it. That's when you know you're dominant. Like Caitlin Clark from the logo. And so talking about Caitlin Clark in the WNBA, Julia, what you got for us?
So our question was, are we about to see a boom in the WNBA's popularity? Yes. Reggie and I talked a little bit about this, I think yesterday in the sports office. I definitely think so. I think, so some of the WNBA teams play in smaller arenas than their NBA teams do. So what a few of them have decided to do when the Fever come to town is they're going over to the larger arena in town and they'll play the game there. So that already shows us that this is growing, right? But I do think, and this is what Reggie said yesterday, it's going to take a few years. It's going to take, the Caitlin Clark effect is obviously real. We've seen it in our, here in Minneapolis. We've seen what it can do, but I think it's going to take more than that. I think it's going to take expansion with the stars that are still in college when Paige Beckers gets drafted to a different team. And then, because a lot of people are going to look forward to the Fever coming to town and Chicago coming to town because it'll be Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. But I think as we see the popularity of people like Tessa Johnson's going to have a huge college career, more than likely. And whatever team she goes to, they'll gain popularity. It's going to be, I think, a steady uphill climb for the WNBA. And I think it's starting out really well, but it's going to boom in years to come too. I think we're just starting to see the beginning of it.
Luke.
Yeah, I didn't watch the draft, even though I'm a draft nut. I'm a draft nerd. I had to cover the Twins game that night, but I did watch probably the most women's March Madness tournament I've ever watched in my life this year. And I know I was one of a lot of people who got sucked into all the compelling storylines and all the big drama, the big names, the big talent with all those top teams that were loaded with all that stuff. And I hope it's here to stay because as a fan of just good, healthy, competitive, entertaining competition, that was some of the best sports competition I've ever sat down and watched in my life. It was that good. So I, for one, I'm going to be a lot more engaged moving forward, and I'll be following along probably more than I ever have. I got to hope and I got to assume there's going to be a lot more people just like me doing the same from here on out.
Reggie.
Yeah, when you talk about Caitlin Clark getting a 8-figure possible shoe deal from Nike. Like that's whoo, like that's big time, man. Like, but it's interesting though, because I felt like last year's season in the W was highly entertaining. And then you follow that up with how entertaining the NCAA season was for the women this year. And man, this thing is cooking with gas. And I know a lot is made about Caitlin Clark, but I mean, you look at the W now, and Camila Cardoso, Angel Reese, both of them going to Chicago. I'm really intrigued by Alyssa Peely that the Lynx got.
Mm-hmm.
I like Aaliyah Edwards in Washington. Like these things to go along with Asia Wilson and Sabrina Ionescu and the talent that they've assembled in Seattle and the New York Liberty. Like this thing is going to be blowing up. And I enjoy it. I've always enjoyed women's sports, and I've always enjoyed the WNBA. I just feel like the competition is pure and the shot making. I think Julia made mention of this. Women are more accurate than men at shooting. And it shows, like the quick flick of the wrist, and it's in there. And so you add Caitlin Clark to the mix. I know it's going to be an adjustment period for her, but once she gets going, like Sabrina did a few years ago, I think she's going to be magic. Her and Miss Boston also there in Indiana, like that team is going to be ascending soon. So we got some fun times ahead in the W, and I'm excited to see the game grow and get more TV deals, and then ultimately the women in the league making more money, and maybe they don't have to go play overseas as much.
Yeah, the thing about the WNBA and NBA too, like it only takes like a player or two to change an organization around. We remember the Lynx when they were dominant with Lindsay Whalen. They had Maya Moore. They had a couple other players. You look at the Diana Taurasi Sun, or not the Suns. What was that team called? It is Connecticut Sun. You look at their run.
Phoenix
you look
Mercury.
at the Phoenix Mercury. Sorry, that's who it was. What's the Connecticut Sun? Is that a team too?
Yeah. That's who the Lynx. That's who
the
Lynx lost to in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, but she was the Mercury. Yeah, you're right. And then you look at Sue Bird when she was with the Seattle Storm. So there, it only takes. And so you're right. Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark coming together. Also, I mean, I don't know how many points are going to come out of this, but Cardoso and if they can both make the team and Bayou Barbie or Chirac. Shawty, as they say now. But like whoever, if those two can play together as two bigs, kind of like Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns, again, that's a formidable. She said, like, nobody's getting rebounds around us. I believe that. Like, only one of you needs to box out Aaliyah Boston, the other one get the rebound. Or only one of you needs to box out Breanna Stewart, and the other one get the rebound. Like it's look at the aces, with Asia Wilson when they, like every team and what's her name, the lefty, I love her, Kelsey Plum. That's my girl. And when you think about that, like it is true. And here's where I go with this really quick before we get out of here. We got like a minute. One quick question, really quick, just fast around. Will the WNBA popularity grow this year? Luke?
Yes, 100%.
Reggie?
Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
And we're gonna talk about this next week as well, because I do want to make sure we talk about this one too. We're gonna talk about the NFL draft next week for sure. But really quick, we got seconds left. There was some drama, of course, on Twitter. Asia Wilson, somebody brought up how come Asia Wilson doesn't have a shoe when Caitlin Clark, Breanna Stewart, and Sabrina have a shoe. Now there also was like a what's her name, the tall girl, Candace Parker had a shoe, but Asia Wilson, like she feels like Isaiah Thomas. I fit the criteria, but they didn't pick me. Like really quick. Like, I don't even know what we let's do this next week. That's the tease. We'll talk about that next week because we don't have enough time to get it. We got to get out of here. But that's the one thing to think about too, as you guys think this weekend. Like, why doesn't Asia Wilson get some of the love? She's a WNBA champion. She's an Olympian. And it's all about the new hot thing. But we know that's why Steph Curry doesn't want to let it go. But you know what? We got to let you guys go. I'm Ron Johnson at Sam Ekstrom, Luke Inman, Reggie Wilson, and Julia Daniels. I want to thank you guys. Make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube to our 24/7 YouTube channel. Thank you, and stay warm out there, man. The winter is back.